By the way, a guy that I call my drug dealer because he is my audio equipment dealer is Filipino. And he just called me up the other day, and he was essentially laughing. He's so 100% comfortable as an American that the thought that there's this anti-Asian.
Okay, so I love how he pivots right away to, but I have an Asian friend. Well, by which I mean someone who works for me, who happens to be Filipino, which I like to joke. I like to say that he looks like a drug dealer. It's a little thing it's funny. It's funny, right? Yeah. It's because he's not from America in my eyes. We've hit gold before. We've done fireside chats and we found gold before. We've had a lot of luck with fireside chats. Probably because Dennis Prager is not fond of masks. Both, literal and figurative. He doesn't like masks of any kind. He does not like to wear masks. He likes to proudly announce his beliefs and what he feels and believes. Open with a funny story. That couldn't be too bad. It's not like his funny stories will have anything to do with genetics or race science or something like that.
Everybody, I'm Dennis Prager. This is Otto. I don't know, Otto Prager wouldn't quite work. I got to tell you folks, a very funny story before I get into a theme here. This is, by the way, the fireside chat. Every week, we haven't missed one. What number is this?
179.
179 consecutive fireside chats. By the way, this is unscripted entirely, and sometimes it shows, but it's truly just my chance to tell you what's on my mind and take your questions. I was giving a speech last week in Florida, and to potential donors to PragerU, and there was a cocktail hour, so we're standing around. A woman comes over to me, and she said, it's too bad you couldn't bring You're Beautiful. And of course, my mind, as we all do, we fill in the assumptive word, the presumed word. And I filled in wife. Oh, it's too bad. I'm sorry you couldn't bring your beautiful wife. And instead, the word Otto comes out. And I cracked up inside. I didn't want to crack up because she wouldn't understand why you're laughing. But that's
so he moves from that pleasant anecdote, ooh, to anti-Asian racism, why lie? That's the jump cut. Open, does he write this down beforehand? Is that, okay, open with a funny story, and then anti-Asian racism, a lie. Let's see. Let's explore this.
There's like a conspiracy, it has been for the last year. Every time I want to talk to you about some great topic about life, something happens.
I have not come across someone saying that it's a conspiracy theory yet. I didn't even entertain that, just because it's kind of like, it's statistically very striking. Like the numbers, it's not like, well, it increased by like 4% this year, which is like, that would be terrible. I would be like horrified to hear that if they're like 4% increase in anti-Asian attacks, but it's like 700. It's like 700% increase. It's like, it's so far beyond the pale at this point that I haven't heard anyone suggest that like, maybe they're just making it up. Maybe the whole thing is a giant lie. Let's see.
So of course the shootings, not just Boulder, but especially the shootings and mass murder, as it were, in Atlanta, have raised raised all of this obsession now. We're bathing in this terrible lie of anti-Asian racism.
It's a weird bath.
In America. Another example of white supremacist thought that's taken over the country. It is an enormous lie.
Oh.
It is fomented. I am going to read to you a little bit from my column of this week, because I want to get everything right. So why are they fomenting this lie?
Wait, I thought this was unscripted. What's he doing? He's going on script. We can't do scripts, all right? I need the improv. Come on. You listen to jazz. Well, no, you haven't, actually. That would probably be the devil's music, but you get it.
I gave 5 reasons. 1, to further demonize America. 2, to further demonize white Americans.
Of course.
3,
of course.
To further divide Americans by race and ethnicity.
You had to write this down? Are you fucking kidding me? I feel like this is something you could improv. I feel like this is consistently going on up here. There's not much to worry about.
4, reinforce or create the belief among Asian Americans that they are widely hated. And 5, engender ethnic identity among Asian Americans, most of whom have heretofore essentially considered themselves Americans who happen to be of Asian descent. It is a very...
No one's putting that to question. No one's like, and by the way, you're also an American. Like, no one said that.
A nefarious project to spread this lie that there is some massive anti-Asian white supremacist bigotry out there.
It's fomented everything.
So I'm going to take a question here. First, because it's about this subject, then I will continue my thoughts about it. So let's get this week's video
Unorthodox
question.
Oh, well, skipping right to the questions.
We begin.
Okay.
Hey Dennis, my name is Jared, I'm 30 and I live in Los Angeles, and I'm a very big fan, by the way. My question to you is this, though I think I know what your answer is going to be. I'm sure that you have heard about the recent attacks at the spa committed by a so-called white supremacist. My issue with this is that we have seen time and time again, especially in this past year, the media use minorities as political props to further certain agendas. I don't think that one attack...
The self-awareness. Man, it just got so meta out of nowhere.
we saw recently equates to white nationalism or white supremacy or systemic racism in general, when if you look at the statistics, before 2 days ago, there was a string of anti-Asian hate crimes that were not being perpetrated by white individuals. That's my personal view, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that. Thanks. And
by the way, I'm just going to preface with this. No one is saying that any form of anti-Asian hate crimes are good. Like that argument does not come up once. Have you heard a person on the left be like, well, by the way, if it's like, you know, a black man beating up an Asian man, then I'm perfectly okay with that. That one's good. I'm okay with that one. But the second it's a white man, that's when I take some issue with this. All right, that's when I'll speak out. I just want to speak my truth, you know.
First of all, the lie begins with the actual murders themselves. They had, to the best of our knowledge, to any knowledge whatsoever, had nothing to do with the women being Asian American. I would like to add 2 of those murdered were not Asian American, but even the 6 that were Asian American, that was not the reason. We all now know the reason, unless evidence comes out, which is very unlikely. Everything's possible, but it's unlikely that evidence will come out that it was because they're Asian. First, the man has 0 record of tweeting or expressing having anything to do with Asians, period. There's always a record of this among haters, okay? There's nothing.
Always.
Second, we know why he did it. He called himself...
I don't know if you call people who murder ethnic minorities haters. I think they're usually doing something that's worse. I mean, there was the interview conducted by the local Korean newspaper that got broadcasted in the larger news outlets of Korea, that apparently he had screamed, "Kill all Asians." Now, that is, again, one person's testimony, but it's not as if there was absolutely nothing to suggest that. That's not the only thing going on.
A sex addict. He was in rehab for sex addiction, and he frequented at least 2 of these massage parlors. So this was his way. He was a son of a pastor, I believe. He lived with enormous religious guilt, and his way of assuaging...
I gotta be honest, I hadn't thought of this until now because it's coming out of Dennis Prager's mouth, but that narrative also plays really well if you want to not have people who are very religious, aka your family, be ashamed of what you just did. If you were like, I don't want it to come out that I was either, you know, using sex workers or that I was, you know, deeply ashamed of that or anything like that. That's the narrative I'm going to say. I'm going to say this has nothing to do with anything other than the fact that I was tempted by, you know, the secular flesh, the devil, all that kind of stuff, and then I had to do what I had to do.
Sick, evil way was to kill the people who fed his addiction. He blamed them, not himself. So that's it. That's the reason he did it.
So
we know the reason. So the use of this is phony. But the whole issue is phony. So I will prove it to you how phony the whole issue is of this massive amount of anti-Asian racism in America. By the way, a guy that I call my drug dealer because he is my audio equipment dealer is Filipino. And he just called me up the other day, and he was essentially laughing. He's so 100% comfortable as an American that the thought that there's this anti-Asian...
Okay, so I love how he pivots right away to, but I have an Asian friend. Well, by which I mean someone who works for me, who happens to be Filipino, which I like to joke, and I like to say that he looks like a drug dealer. It's a little thing it's funny. It's funny, right? Yeah. It's because he's not from America in my eyes.
Thing going around. Most Americans don't give a damn, frankly, if you're Asian. It doesn't strike them as an issue. It's not worthy of talking. Everybody knows I'm Jewish, but it doesn't mean anything to 99% of the people who talk to me. They know it. That's the same with Asians. We know you're an Asian, but it doesn't mean anything. That's the American way. We know you're X, but it doesn't matter to us. We know you're black, but it doesn't matter to us. We know you're Hispanic, but it doesn't matter to us. Fill in the blank. This country has achieved the least amount of xenophobia and racism in any country in the world's history that had multiple ethnicities living in it.
The least amount.
So listen to this. March 18th, the Washington Post reported, anti-Asian hate crimes have spiked 150% since the pandemic began, according to a recent study. Sounds bad, doesn't it? Spiked 150%. So I went to check the study because, it had a hyperlink. The study cited by the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN, and other left-wing media is from the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at California State University, San Bernardino. The 150% increase in anti-Asian American hate crimes is contained in its fact sheet, Anti-Asian Prejudice, March 2020, according to which the number of anti-Asian American incidents rose, are you ready? This is the 150% rise, from 49 in 2019 to 122 in 2020.
So what are you like? It's okay. I thought the numbers were going to be 100,000 hate crimes across the land, but hey, guess what? It only went from 49 to 100 and something. Which, as you know, friends, is acceptable. We've talked about this before. That's a perfectly fine amount of Asians to be hated, in my opinion.
The entire edifice of hate against Asian Americans is predicated on an alleged increase of 73 incidents. By the way, this is incidents. This is not killings. This is not beatings. This is only incidents.
Incidents can involve more than one person too, dude. What are you saying right now? How is this a gotcha? He's like, the numbers, I guess, weren't as high as he thought they were going to be, but this is ridiculous.
Call you a bad name, and it might even have nothing to do with your being Asian American, but you might take it as such. That qualifies in this, their words, what is it? Spike. That's it, spike. I love that. A spike of 150.
By the way, those are the times that people were willing to come forward and tell their stories. And that, by the way, is very underrepresentational. The numbers are as high as, like, in some areas, it goes as high as 600 to 700%, not 150%. Like, yeah, that's enough of an observable trend for someone to be like, this is a problem. Like, we have to do something about this.
You realize these percentage things mean nothing. Let's say there had been one anti-Asian American incident, and the next year there were 3. That would be an incredible spike. 300.
And also, yeah, you're pointing out that's a great point. 2020 to 2021, it's just 2019 to 2020. Like, the spikes are happening now specifically as well.
More thoughts on that. Given that there are about 330 million Americans, and assuming a different American was responsible for each of the 122 anti-Asian incidents, that would mean 1 in every 2,704,918 Americans committed an anti-Asian incident. As regards violent acts against Asian Americans, listen to this. How many mainstream media are going to report this? According to the U.S. Bureau of Justice Statistics from September 2019, blacks have committed the greatest percentage of violent crimes against Asian Americans.
Always makes me cringe when I hear him say that. And I knew it. Wow, I predicted that. Well, it's not really a prediction with Dennis Prager. It's basically just the modus operandi. But yeah, I was like, I know, but he's going to bring it up. And does that make it okay? Does that make it okay either? Are you suddenly like, and so you don't have to worry about this one, everybody. You don't have to worry about any of it.
But the mendacious, lying media don't report that.
Mendacious.
Gets worse. The New York Times, the leader in mass hysterias fomented by the left, printed this headline last week. Quote, attacks on Asian Americans in New York stoke fear, anxiety, and anger. The subhead reads, hate crimes involving Asian American victims soared.
So recent reports show that there was an increase to nearly 3,800 hateful incidents during the first year of the pandemic. Those racist incidents are not just limited to crimes. Yeah, he's dramatically underreporting this right now.
In New York City last year. Focus on the word soared, and you will appreciate the New York Times commitment to truth. If one reads past the headline, which most people do not, the article gives the actual numbers. Quote, this is in the New York Times article. The number of hate crimes with Asian American victims reported to the New York Police Department soared to 28. 28 in 2020 from just 3 the previous year. Yep, you read that right. The number of incidents soared and jumped to 28. In a city of 8.4 million people, including, as of 2010, over 1 million Asian Americans, right? So about 1 in every 300,000 New Yorkers.
This is really weird. So it's basically just going to be him reading through this and being like, and as you can see, these numbers are smaller than you probably thought they were. Not these don't happen. Not that there actually has been an increase. Like that's a huge spike in that one category. COVID or nationality or parents. I'm gonna skip to give up freedom to add years to my life.
Tim, Butler, Pennsylvania, 35 years old. Dennis, recently I read some stories of...
Did you see this pop up? The Muslim religion and atheism in the same category.
People who left the witness protection program because the possibility of death was not worth the isolation from their friends and family. You all know what the witness protection program is? Where somebody has testified against a dangerous group like a drug cartel or a mafia. A group, and so they are put in a witness protection program. Their identity is changed. Nobody knows their address. They're protected in some place that they don't live normally. As we approach the 1-year anniversary of, quote, 2 weeks to slow the spread, good one. It's the year anniversary of a 2-week promise. My question is, how many years of your life would you be willing to give up for the possibility of adding years to your life? That's really a good one. That's really the question that is being posed. I am of the look. Everybody would say I'll give up a year of freedom to have 2 more years of freedom later. I mean that's a rational answer, right? But that's not what I believe. In reality, is being offered. We're being told to lose a year of our life, and we won't gain anything. That's what I believe. If I believe this was scientifically and rationally a good idea to quarantine healthy people for the first time in human history, I would think that's great. Look,
they took everything from us. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Years to the end, but I don't believe that for a second.
I don't believe any of it.
I have a different question. How many suicides, lapses of addicts backed into their addiction, opioid deaths, emotional breakdowns,
the concern trolling,
a lack of
cares about it for the first time ever,
back for at least a year in critical educational time, depriving children of playtime with other children. How much are you willing to give that up for a potential gain in health?
Well, I mean, I guess you see by the numbers right now, it's what, 600,000? It's about 600,000 dead Americans. So that was kind of been the trade, not taking this seriously at all for as long as y'all did. So I guess that was kind of the cost. I'm assuming most people would have been probably better off and happier with the less loss of life.
That's the real question, and it's not even potential. How you doing, Otto?
Oh, free Otto.
I have to tell you, it is very relaxing. All right, that's my answer to that.
Well,
All right, Otto, you're a good man. A good dog. Haydar, 35, Beirut, Lebanon.
well,
Good to hear from you. I was born to a Muslim family, but I have been an atheist since the age of 13.
here we go.
Before I go on, I want to comment on that.
Okay.
I have a theory that you'll find of interest. The highest percentage of atheists being produced these days is in Muslim countries, like Lebanon, but especially Iran.
Really?
Second highest is in the United States because of the secular brainwash at our educational institutions. And third is Europe, which has already been radically secularized. But I remember when I first thought about this, I was in Australia giving some lectures, and I was at an outdoor restaurant right across the Opera House on the Sydney Harbour, and a very pretty waitress was serving my wife and me, and I talk even to the non-pretty men who serve me. I just talk to everybody. I don't care your age, your sex, sexual orientation. I just love talking to people, especially strangers. Anyway, so I asked her where she's from.
He couldn't have meant to have said that. I think he just misspoke. I think he misspoke. I don't think he knows what he just said. I think he meant to say women. I think he meant to say I even speak to the unattractive women. And that's, I think so. I think he was just trying to be a dick, not trying to be weirdly progressive. Now I need to know.
And I talk even to the non-pretty men who serve me. I just talk to everybody.
I talk to the non-pretty men who serve me? This is a really weird string of words. I have to believe he doesn't know what's happening right now. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's weird flexes all around. I don't know why you'd want to brag about any of this. I don't know why you'd be like, hey, I talk to attractive women and women who aren't attractive, you know? Sometimes it's babes and sometimes it's dogs, you know? Like, it's just whatever I care about, you know? That's all very weird. But the fact that I think he messed up. I don't think he meant to say, and the pretty men as well. I speak to the pretty men too. The pretty boys. A couple good old twinks came to serve me that day.
I just love talking to people, especially strangers. Anyway.
Yeah, like I think he just wanted to be sexist, not progressive simultaneously. Yeah, I think he was just going for raw sexism there.
So I asked her where she's from, and she said originally Iran. And I said, so are you Muslim, Christian, or Jew? Which could have been any of the three. So she...
I'll be honest, pretty aggressive second question. Like when you're just meeting someone. Like if they're like, hi, oh, where are you from? So are you Muslim, Christian, or Jew? No, that's usually what I follow that up with, yeah. Oh, cool.
She said, none. And I said, okay, why were you raised? She said, Muslim. And now I'm an atheist. And I realized...
Wait, that's the science for your whole proposition that atheism is growing fastest in predominantly Muslim countries? I just assumed that was wrong because everything you say is wrong. But then I thought you were going to pull out like some weird statistic that you weren't understanding properly. But instead it's just the story of you, again, being a weirdo. It's always stories of you being a weirdo.
The
hey, what up, Kevin
Islamists
Logan? Everyone go give Kevin Logan a follow.
have presented religion as so awful and evil and irrational and fanatical that it has turned off vast numbers of young Muslims who otherwise might have a warm feeling toward their faith. And so when you tell me you were born into a Muslim family and you consider yourself an atheist since you were 13...
I believe there is a God. I believe there's some sort of spirit or force. I believe there is any sort of spirit, God, life, or force. I don't believe. So this is basically where atheism is the most extreme. Oh, what do you know? It's all like SOCDEM countries. Denmark, Netherlands, the UK's in there, France, Estonia, Sweden, Czech Republic, Turkey, Croatia, Switzerland, Iceland, Norway. Oddly, not a lot of predominantly Muslim nations at all. We're missing something. Maybe they just weren't polled? Like Indonesia, I think, is the largest. But then you would be seeing a correlation between Muslims and atheists, right? You would see a drop in the Muslim population in response to the atheist population. I mean, I knew he was full of shit just because he's always full of shit, but this one's particularly strange.
I think I know where you're coming from. Don't you think that conservatism as a philosophy should be concerned more with political views than religious ones? As an atheist, I tend to agree more with conservatives on various issues such as capitalism, less government, opposing the critical race theory, freedom of speech, and freedom of religion.
I mean, you sound like a Christian conservative, and just with less steps.
But every time conservatives emphasize the fundamental role of religion in their views, it creates a feeling that they are pushing atheists, agnostics, and non-believers away, and that conservatism is not as inclusive as it should be. Thank you for the amazing work. Well, shukran to you, my friend. That was thank you in Arabic. And
impressive.
That's a very important question. So let's see here. Are we pushing atheists, agnostics, and non-believers away from conservatism by emphasizing the religious foundations of conservatism, certainly in America? Unless you feel you have to move away, we're not pushing you away. Secular conservatives are critical to conservatism and the fight against the leftist attempt to undo the West. We need you and you need us. That's really what it amounts to. However, we have to be intellectually honest. In the foundational document of the United States of America, the Declaration of Independence, it speaks about the Creator giving us certain inalienable rights, specifically life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
I got to be honest, is like, I'm sure that would be intense to some people. This has got to be his most, I don't know, toned down response or answer. Like he heard the question, he answered the question like a normal person. It wasn't like he heard that question. He was like, that's why I want to talk about the Holocaust. And you're like, wait, what? That's not, you weren't provoked to do that at all. There was no signal there. No intro whatsoever. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Can you do the thing, you know, that thumbs up and comment and all those things that help us out in the algorithm that controls every aspect of our lives? Also, if you happen to have a Facebook account, can you delete it? Like just delete it. You should probably delete your Facebook account because it's not a great company. But hey, if you can't do that for whatever reason, I understand. And could you also go to facebook.com/thesurftimes then and give us a little like and a follow. We're just trying to push back against the fact that people like Ben Shapiro happen to dominate the platform entirely. And when everyone asks, why do older generations believe the things they believe? One of the problems is the majority of them on social media use Facebook. So to counter that, we're just going to be on there too now. Also, if you happen to have a union or a worker co-op or even a leftist project, podcast, website, Zoom, MySpace, it doesn't matter. We will advertise it for free on this channel. All you got to do is go to weareserfs.com and use the forms that we got there, weareserfs.com. Thanks, everybody.
To our glorious gods, Xander Corvus and I'm Rav, may you shower us with glory and smite our enemies. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we serve at your leisure, your grace. To our lords, Tofox, Bisexual Black Gamer, Jimothy K. Meeble Beeps Jr., Ryan Lubin, Trevor R., Jeffrey Lamb, Alexander Thaler, and Hans Josephine, we shall carry your banner high into the fields of battle. To our Knights of the Round Table, Timothy Hart, Trevor Janis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophagic, Saren 42, Chronic de Hemphog, Kale Kotka, The Great Pudini, Bone Jenny, Catherine, Radical Maniac, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, J. Fraser Cartwright, Thomas Barrington, Jimmy Bignuts, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Political Puppy, Andreas Chitoro, Goofalankius, Zach Christensen, Nicholas Marks, Gopi, Josh Mickelson, Melissa Murphy, Todd Buckingham, Todd Lajeunesse, Constance Joyce Lacheris. We lift our glasses of ale and we salute you.